I'm Priyanka and I'm back again with my new poem, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. Take the correct alternatives. Where does the speaker of the poem stop? Somewhere near woods and a frozen lake. He in the line 3 refers to the owner of the woods. What does the speaker want to do near the woods? The speaker wants to stop and admire the beauty of nature near the woods. He gave his harness bill a snake shake. Whom does he refers to here? The word he refers to the horse of the poet. He. Which sound does the speaker refer in the stanza 3? The poet referred to the voice of easy wind and falling of snowflakes in stanza 3. Which word in the poem indicates a change in the mode of speaker? The word but indicates a change in the mode of speaker who decide to go miles away before sleeping. What contrast do you find in stanza 3? In the third stanza, we find a contrast between the thought of a horse and its rider. The horse thinks that its rider is making a mistake. What does the speaker want to suggest by referring to the owner of the woods? The speaker suggests to come into the contact of nature and admire its beauty by referring to the owner of woods. He means to say that a human being should love nature and always live in contact of it. How, what do the word my little horse signify? My little horse signify that speaker and his little horse probably spend a lot of time together, and the speaker is able to read the horse little mind. What does must in line 5 suggest? The word must here suggests the determination of horse, which felt it strange of stopping of poet and admit the nature. It shows strong relationship between man and creature of the nature. Explain the meaning of last two lines. The last two lines of the poem explains the speaker is very far from his home and he feels the need to go miles away. He is determined to finish his journey before going to the rest. What is the note of style of the poem? The poem has been composed by the poet Robert Frost at an expression of mood. The language of the poem is full of suggestion in which we find directives and command nature of the poet. The word has been used easy and full of inspiration that has perfect sense of international touch in the language. There is not perfect use of provincial language. The poet used directive sense which encouraged the readers to obey the commands of poet and adopt his advice as an objective of life of human being. The words are simple and the phrases contain deep thoughts which touch the inner part of the soul and develop the sense of great emotions in heart and mentality of the reader. The poet uses personification to communicate to the nature. The rhyming scheme is based on pattern of AABA and full of illustration. What is the central idea of the poem? On behalf of this poem, the poet discusses about the importance of nature in the life of human being. The poet says that the nature is a gift of God to men. The men should come in contact of nature and enjoy its beauty. The poet clears that nature is a source of inspiration which advises men to avoid the company of his materialistic world, which is mortal, but nature is a way by which we can achieve the target of our life to achieve immortality in this world. The poet says that the man has been granted limited duration of life, which must not be wasted by staying at a particular place. We ought to proceed onwards and carrying out our journey. By doing so, we can visit this world more and more. He means to say that before our death, we should fulfill our duties and liabilities. Why is the owner of the wood unable to see the poet? The owner of the wood is unable to see the poet because he never goes to see his wood, which are full of snow. The poet clears that there is not any sense of the love and attachment in his heart for nature. The sense of avoiding from nature will distract him from the poet and he will be unable to see the poet. Why does a poet stop in woodland? The poet stop in woodland because there is a soft corner in the heart of the poet for the nature. He loves nature very much and he wants to admire the beauty of nature. The poet is inspired with the stillness of nature, and the snow makes him introduce us with the sight of death, which is essential and it's beautiful. It insists the poet to stay there. Why does a poet call the evening darkest evening of the year? The poet calls evening darkest evening of the year because there is not any sign of life. There is a complete stillness, and snow makes every movement of nature still. It develops a great sense of gloom and hopeless. The poet counts his life still and useless. He noticed the sight of death before him and counted the evening darkest of the year. What symptoms of life does the poet find in frozen woodland? The poet finds blowing wind slowly and regularly falling off the snowflakes. It develops positive sense and it finds the symptoms of life in the frozen woodland. The regular process of snow develops the sense of hope and about a new life after death, and it encourages him to make his journey carry on miles and miles away before sleeping in death in the mortal world. Why does a poet call the woody lovely, dark, and deep? The poet calls the wood beautiful, dark, and deep because they make him realize that the reality of life, that nothing is permanent in this world. He calls them dark because it is not easy to understand the lesson behind the stillness, and it requires deep knowledge to understand the utility of nature in the life of human being. The poet says that nature is full of secret, and long submission of man can make him eligible to understand its secret. In this way, he ought to be companion of nature. What promise does the poet make to himself? The poet promised himself to carry on his journey to go further miles before sleeping. The poet clears that staying at a particular place is a sign of death, so that we must remain active and go ahead during our lifetime. The world is full of diversity and beauty as well as knowledge, so that the human being should come into contact of nature in order to enjoy the liberty of life and get opportunity of achieving the target of life. How does the poet shows great relation between men and natural elements? The poet shows great relation between men and natural elements. He says that there is a perfect understanding between men and nature, such as the horse of the poet understand his mental condition and try to ask his complication of stay amid the nature. The frozen lake and the woodland tell the thought of stillness of the poet and his action of hopelessness, but on other hand, blowing air and the dropping of snow make him active to go further before his death. Thank you.